I created the Acolyte's Quill in order to release the information that is supposed to be in my second book, which won't be out for some time. Simply don't have the resources or time to complete it. This information, however, is vital, and a lot of my fans have been waiting for it. First off, why are we here? Why would you volunteer to come to a prison planet? And it is a prison planet. This planet is crucial to the outcome of the future. Something happened here because of the apocalypse, which altered the balance of power in this galaxy, allowing these individuals over here to gain incredible amounts of power and destructive force through something that was weaponized by the human beings. They're also the ones that conducted the galactic invasion I'll be going into. They'll remain unnamed for the moment. Why would you choose to volunteer to come to a prison planet? Many of you have been told that this is a school, that we're here to learn lessons. I'm here to tell you, you volunteered. You were volunteered, you accepted, or you wouldn't be here. And also, you were already a master of light. And many, my age, from back in the 60s and beyond, over to the 40s, the first wave of volunteers. This is mentioned by Dolores Cannon in her work, and I've linked a small video below, short video, so you can get some understanding and can follow her if you wish. Now, initially, they only wanted individuals that had been on the planet before because the separation from source is catastrophic, and many minds don't hold up well under that situation. So, those who had been here on Earth before were the first to be selected. I refused to come many times. However, I was shown the outcome of the future, which is what Dolores Cannon speaks of when she says something terrible happens 800 Earth years into the future. I got to see that. I'll be explaining that to you. Releasing that information was not allowed to release it before. It is catastrophic. It's pretty much the end of everything. Many of the prophecies dealing with the apocalypse are taking place now. The Euphrates River is drying up, and the earth is going through a pole shift. There's a part in the prophecies that states that there would be 3 days of darkness, and then the sun would rise, but it would rise in the west, and Jesus would be seen coming in the clouds. Now, that, from my research, implies a pole shift in which we are in the midst of one. If any of you follow Suspicious Observers with Ben Davidson, he seems to have the most information on this. He follows it daily, has hundreds of videos you can watch. The pole has left Canada, the Hudson Bay area, has crossed the axis, and is now speeding up as it's heading toward a spot in the Indian Ocean. The location, rough idea where it's at. The South Pole has completely traversed. Antarctica is in the Indian Ocean. Ben Davidson has a tremendous amount of information. We vary on exactly what's going to happen in our ideas and our research. We don't all have the answers. I don't have all the answers. But he's done a tremendous amount of research. And I've linked below a short video on him. It's an older video, but it's called 5 Truths of the Magnetic Reversal. It's very informative. In there, he mentions that as this progresses, our electromagnetic fields that are protecting us appear to be weakening. A while back, I purchased a UV meter so that I could measure this weakening field. 3 years ago, I measured readings in the low 9s. 2 years ago, I measured readings in the 10s, also mid or low 10s. Last year, and I got an 11.8. My meter only goes to 12. So that proved to me at that moment, it was rather startling, that they've sped up. The poles are speeding up. The event is happening at a slightly faster rate than it had been. We're in the midst of the end of time, and that's why I want to get this information out. One of the main things I need to cover is the humanity, what we are and why we're still vital to whatever is taking place and why there are so many watching us to see what we'll do. So far, we've done it stellar. We really have just done an amazing job. The apocalypse did not take place, as I mentioned, and I'll be covering that so you understand. We're jumping timelines. Not exactly sure what's causing that, other than we're raising our frequency so that we are no longer on the timeline that would have been as destructive. Now, prophecies. Many Christians believe that if a prophecy has been written and stated by God, that it will transpire. A prophecy is a warning of something that's going to happen if you don't change something. I give you the story of Nineveh with Jonah. Jonah was told to go give a message to Nineveh, but he was terrified of Nineveh. And when he got on the boat and headed out to the sea in the Mediterranean, he was actually heading directly away from Nineveh. At any rate, when he finally got to Nineveh and gave his warning to the king gave him an audience, listened to him, and then he said, "We will make these changes that are required of us. I will make them, and then everyone below me will make them. All his captains, all his lords, all his sub-rulers." Jonah, having been given this prophecy of destruction, went up to a high cliff that overlooked the city and waited for the destruction to come. It never did. Jonah was not happy. But if we change, I don't think Jesus would be terribly upset to come down and find us all trying to do good when he returns, instead of trying to slaughter each other. So I don't have a problem with that understanding at all of what's taking place. However, we are apparently in the end of times, and these things that are out of our control have begun. So I'll be covering some things on preparedness. I'll be leading you to others that are better versed on the subject. I won't be hitting too much of what you consider conspiracy. I have a tremendous amount of evidence for what I'm trying to explain. For instance, there's problems with the whole creation of man thing. God apparently had nothing to do with it. It is evident from our genetic makeup that we have genetic strains in us that don't match anything on the planet. They appeared about 280,000 years ago. That's about the time the Anunnaki got here. Anunnaki and Elohim are almost interchangeable. They mean the powerful ones, the ones who came down from the heavens. And by heavens, I don't mean a place where angels play harps. It was a word for cosmos, for space. They came down from space. Earth was not created by them. It was sort of repaired by them. Man was not created by them. They took man and modified him. That's exactly the wording that's in the Bible. Also, the word God, as we understand God, the sole creator source, is not mentioned in the Old Testament. That's why when Jesus was talking about God dwelling in your heart, the priests didn't understand that. And they called him a heretic, which is what Nazarene means. Jesus the heretic. There was another Jesus the heretic before him who was stoned to death. And in one part of Acts, Paul's followers are mentioned as the Nazarenes. They can't all be from Nazareth. Initially, humans were created, how would I say? The Bible states male and female, he created them both. They were androgynous. They also could not reproduce. The Anunnaki were not supposed to be creating a life form, but they were in trouble. In the galactic battles, their massive ship had been damaged and needed repairs, which required gold. This gold was then converted to monoatomic gold, and it's the monoatomic gold they used to repair what is referred to as their atmosphere. It's not really an atmosphere. It's more like our electromagnetic fields around our planet. These fields created by the monoatomic gold could protect them from radiation and provided the propulsion system for their massive world, which is larger than Earth. It's a sphere, hollowed out, made of a specific alloy. The entire thing was already there, the alloy, they just modified it after Lyria was destroyed in galactic invasions that happened in the Orion sector. During the galactic invasion by these individuals, they were amazed to discover that these beings on the planet were created from the Anunnaki DNA, or modified. So now they had a really unique specimen to work with. However, they were androgynous. So it was the reptilians, according to several ancient legends, that took these beings and told them, you have to choose, you have to decide whether you'll be male or female. They went into separate caves and they were modified. Then the reptilians had a race that they could use to build their cities, food, provide babies for sacrifice. These children that were sacrificed, it's fascinating to me that in the Bible, I guess you can call it the Mandela effect, the word matrix now appears. And I quoted this verse in my book. It says, suffer all firstborn to pass through the womb, to be passed through fire. This fire is a sacrifice. It's a large bowl. It's more like a wok, and there's a flame under it, a large flame. And the child is placed into this contraption, this bowl, and is basically cooked to death. All firstborn, animal and human, so that humans would know that they are the Lord, the Elohim, it says in the Bible. That word has been changed to suffer all who enter the matrix to pass through fire. This is a sacrifice that has been mentioned many times by some individuals, especially Alex Collier. God would not ask for that, the God I know. Not sure that the Anunnaki would ask for that as well. So when the Bible is talking about the Elohim, the astronauts, it's not distinguishing between the evil ones and the not so evil ones. And it causes a lot of confusion because you have God demanding they go create genocide. They just wipe out entire civilizations. And they gladly do it. However, if you're confused about this part of the sacrifice, remember the story of the 3 young men. There was a ceremony for those who were to pass through the fire. And it's sort of documented in Daniel 3, where the king wants everyone to bow at this new statue he's made. It's a statue of Moloch. Daniel doesn't mention that. The statue would have had the furnace built into it, and on his lap would have been this large bronze bowl for the sacrifices, where you would go and place your child. There were 3 who would not bow when the king required it. It was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And then the king gets really irate with them because they won't do as he commands. He requires that the furnace be made 7 times hotter than required to roast human flesh. That's because that's the temperature it was set at to roast human flesh. It also roasted the flesh of any animal put in there. All firstborn, didn't matter if they were animal or human, were to be sacrificed to these things. That's the actual history that's recorded in your Old Testament. I'll be bringing that information to you, whether you choose to accept it or not. I don't need to know that, and I don't care. The time is short, and I need to get this information out. Why is humanity so special? We've been modified over and over. During the Tower of Babel incident, when language was removed, it wasn't language that was removed, it was telepathics. We could not communicate telepathically. We still have the sensors for receiving, but they've modified them and taken away the entire for transmission. However, some people can every now and then get a message. I know I've received messages. However, that caused a splitting in the mind, a sort of separation from source. It's like a Wi-Fi. Our Wi-Fi is still on, we're just not getting all the frequencies, all the channels were supposed to be picked up. It's like a section was pulled out. We were always connected to source in some way or other. However, when this was removed, lies became possible. We couldn't tell if someone was lying. When you're doing telepathic communication, lies are not possible. But now lies were possible. and that altered humanity. It also caused a massive shift in our consciousness, a splitting, sort of corruption, cracking, destruction, whatever you want to call it. We had an abandonment issues. We've had them ever since. Followed by that, the changing of humans to be fearful so that they would know they were going to be punished if they didn't obey. They modified those sensors so we can actually die of fear. We can be so afraid. We can also die from feeling alone. That is not normal. All of these emotions have been ramped up way beyond anything normal. So that makes us unique. What it does is it separates us from source, makes us think we're an individual and not part of the collective. This is very helpful when you're in the presence of source, creator, because what happens is that residue of humanity maintains its original uniqueness. We believe we are separate from God, and now God can have a conversation. That was not possible before. There was no knowing where you ended and someone else began. When you're off world, those worlds are incredibly boring. There's very little going on. Almost nothing ever changes. Down here is rather quite exciting, really. However, when we become these light bodies, and that was the mission of Christ, if he did not come to die for our sins, what was the whole point of the crucifixion? That was because he became a light body. David Wilcock has done a tremendous amount of research on this, and in his research, he's found that it has been documented that over 100,000 individuals have accomplished this. It takes 13 years to do it. Jesus did it in a matter of hours. He said we would do it even faster than he did. And that's another thing that that all the overlords, the wardens, the galactic enemies we have, and even those that are trying to assist us are afraid of. Because when that energy sheet wave arrives and hits this planet, because of our unique genetic makeup, we will be altered into light bodies. If you've listened this far, thank you. I look forward to sharing all the information I've discovered with you, and I thank you for listening. Please share and subscribe.